This podcast encourages and empowers you to create your own unique real story, develop your own unique real statement, and discover your own unique real self. The power is yours. Good morning, Daisy Onubogu. How are you doing on this wonderful, beautiful morning?
I'm pretty good. It's nice to see the sun again.
That's wonderful. What part of the world are you in?
I'm in London right now,
All right.
so it's even more of a novelty to see the sun.
That's wonderful. Well, do tell me, which of your talents is responsible for us connecting at this specific time in history?
I'm not even sure. I remember scheduling it, and then when it came up, I was like, "Wait, how did this happen again?" I can't remember. It's so weird. But happy nonetheless. I'm trying to think where it might have come from. Maybe it was from like the digital nomad community, or maybe I feel like if it was an outreach from Rome, you would remember. So maybe from the travel community, because a lot of podcasting, etc., goes on there.
Well, I'm intrigued because
As am I. I was gonna ask you, but if you don't know either,
I definitely do
it's a
not
fun
know.
mystery to be solved.
Yeah, I added you on LinkedIn last night before I went to sleep. I was like, okay, I wonder how I'm connected with her.
Mysteries abound.
Definitely. Well, tell me about what you do, please.
So what I do these days, primarily, is I'm recruiting or gathering, I guess is a better term, a community of people. What they have in common is that they're all nodes in different communities. So, they might run a women in tech group, or they might run a, lesbian entrepreneurs group or something or other, but they're all nodes in their own individual communities. And I'm gathering them all together so that they can recruit, so they can source potential investment opportunities for my company. We figure probably the best way to actually see some diversity in business leaders and in the companies, company CEOs, et cetera, of the future is probably to make sure that they get some money in their hands, and that's not going to happen no matter how much we talk about it until there's a proper bridge or proper pipeline from the people who have the money to the people looking for it, who are currently slightly outside the sphere, shall we say, of those in the know. So that's primarily what I do. We figure if X person knows 15 potential, great founders, all of whom are Black women, for instance, and we use X person as the connection between us and that community, then it means that we'll actually see some very interesting opportunities coming out of there. And hopefully we can start supporting more of those entrepreneurs, looking at real problems, looking at, real issues beyond just the next, I don't know, Uber for golf or whatever else it is privileged white men insist on building. So that's the biggest thing that I'm focusing on. And then on the side, more generally, I guess I've been lucky enough to meet lots of people, have a very interesting and diverse network, and I generally try to connect them across as far as I can so that they can go off and do great things together. So that results in all sorts of very interesting random projects, but they're usually fun. So this week, one person that I knew was trying to put together a documentary for digital nomads and travel sort of location independent individuals. They wanted to feature some people who live that way and who support the ecosystem. And they were looking for, prime candidates, and I know someone else I know quite a few people who are in that community, but one in particular has been looking for more exposure because she's a social psychologist who does a lot of kind of science-driven consulting on behalf of startups and digital nomads and coaching. So I connected them together to make the film, first of all, and then looked for a couple of people that I know have been looking for coaching to transition out of one stage of their career to another, and brought them into the fold as well. So now, all of those people are connected, and ideally making a really interesting film off of it and other future things they might do together. So that's, I think, what keeps me busy most of the time outside of the day job.
That's intriguing. That is super intriguing. What would I say? What would I say? So it seems as though you're constantly focusing on others. Who did you learn that
Yeah.
from? That ability to, you know what? You know what I think? Like you're the village leader. Then who did you learn that from? Is there someone in your family or friends who had a similar type of personality?
Yeah, so I think it was two-sided. I think on the positive side, I definitely learned that community gathering and community leadership stuff from my mom. She's very religious. She's a pastor in a church. And when I was growing up, she wasn't a pastor, but she was still pretty senior in the church. And I think I remember from a very early age just how normal it was for her to be the one bringing people together, for her to be the one mediating when there were, social conflicts. People would come over to the house and she would talk them down and give them advice. So that was definitely something that I saw from an early age, even if I didn't quite process what I was seeing. And then on the maybe slightly negative side, I went through, I think, the obligatory teenage phase of self-loathing and insecurity. And I was really uncomfortable and kind of had a presumption that people wouldn't like me. So I went out of my way to figure out how to be of service, how to, be the best I could for other people so they wouldn't hate me. So it definitely came out of a compulsion that was pretty unhealthy. But I think when I, thankfully grew out of that stage, learned, self-love and all that necessary stuff for actualization, I kept the skill set, I suppose, or the habits maybe that I developed during that stage of looking around the room and trying to see how I could make everyone happy in that room so no one would turn on me. When I stopped worrying anybody was going to turn on me, I still kind of just defaulted to that particular role of looking around the room, trying to see how to make things happen and how to make other people, enjoy themselves in my vicinity.
One of the personality assessments calls it woo, winning others over. It's a strength.
Yeah. So I'm quite pleased with how things have panned out. Now that the habits are there, but without the unhealthy compulsions, and now it's a thing that I do mostly because it brings me joy, and kind of force multiplies what I get out of meeting people, because now I meet someone and I think there's only so many actual meaningful friendships you can sustain. And I always wondered to myself, what would you, when you already had all the friends that you needed, then what do you do when you go out into the world? Do you just not talk to people anymore? Or do you do it but know that it's kind of a waste of time because you might never see this person again, or there's really maybe no point to it? But I think now that in the back of my head, I'm always just presuming that at some point, maybe I don't see you again, maybe we don't actually spend time together because you leave for the other side of the planet. If we loosely stay in touch, there's probably a likelihood that at some point you'll occur to me as someone who can be really impactful in someone else's life, and that will validate the time that we spend together and the point of meeting you at all.
Wow. Wow. So where's the best place for someone that's listening to connect with you?
So probably the best place to start with is LinkedIn, because that they can just search for my name and send me a message. And for better or worse, I do always check them. And then there's also just email. But I think LinkedIn is probably better because things genuinely actually get lost in my email more than they do in my LinkedIn, since it's always there and it pesters you with those notifications. And then from there, I'm a pretty open person. Like, I tend to meet people in person very quickly because I think also conversations are better that way, and you can kind of jumpstart to meaningful connection quite quickly. So, and then from there, the rest of the channels are open, but Facebook is fine. And as is LinkedIn. I think on both you can obviously search me, find me publicly, and send me a message.
Were your parents from the Caribbean?
My parents are Nigerian.
Nigerian, all right. So
Yeah.
you're right. Your accent is pretty pressed out. All right.
There was a lot of moving around when I was younger, and I think even still now. So I've just ended up with this kind of, you mix lots of colors together, you get brown. Kind of lots of noises together, you get flat, Americanish, but not quite.
Yeah, it's intriguing. It's a good accent. All right, my friend. Let's switch gears for a moment now, Daisy. Let me invite you into my time machine that is surrounded with beautiful, warm, blue Caribbean water.
Oh,
Daisy,
nice.
what is your earliest childhood memory?
I'm really bad at these questions because I remember so little from when I was growing up. But I do, I do remember this episode of getting quite upset with my mum because she'd gone away. She used to travel. She used to be an air hostess, and she'd gone away and she bought these toys. They were mechanical bugs, so you wound them up and then they crawled or they, scudded across the floor like they were bugs. And she bought back one spider and one something else I don't remember, and came into the room and then like really quietly set them off behind us. And I ran and I ran and I fell down the steps. And I remember it was the first time that I was angry at, because I don't think before that I knew you could be angry at adults or at your parents. They were, and then you were you. They could get angry at you for sure. But it was the first time I think I ever yelled at anyone. So I got really upset with her, and she apologized to me, and I was like, oh, I didn't realize this was a thing. I don't think I processed all of this then, but it just stuck with me because it was such a weird reversal. You don't yell at your parents, and then they certainly don't apologize to you afterwards. That's not how that works, certainly not in a West African household. So it was probably a little bit later on. I don't think I was too young. I was maybe like 4. But I think it's certainly the thing that stuck with me from the earliest stage.
How do you see it connecting to who you are today?
I think it makes a lot of sense. I think I'm maybe almost preoccupied with the idea of fairness. I'm always the person like annoying my friends because instead of just indulging them when they're upset, I'm like, I kind of think I see where the other person is coming from, and I think you should be fair and reasonable. I think I've always had this sense of there is right and there's wrong, and it doesn't matter about what your position or power is, whether it's parent-child or in a work situation, whatever it might be. You're just people, and both of you are entitled equally to respect. And if you make a mistake, you apologize. And if you feel wronged, you demand an apology, and that's just the give and take of being a person. So I definitely think it impacted really interestingly. I wonder what would have happened if I'd gotten upset and then yelled, and then she didn't apologize or she didn't respond accordingly. I think it'd be interesting what different notion of relationships that might have taken me down.
Can I offer an interpretation to the thought picture you created in my mind with that memory? Can I?
Of course.
I love the concept of, okay, so this is what I see in the picture. I see, and so it's parallel to who you are with the perspective of what you do by setting off kindness, and it's automated in a sort of way, just like those bugs, where you have conversations with other people and you help them, and that's like the automation there, right? So you crank up individuals. Again, all of this is metaphorically speaking, right? And you crank them up and then you let them go, right? But instead of using something that may cause individuals to go down a step, you've actually found a way to switch it to ensure that it makes them go up a step. And instead of them quarreling, you get them happy. And to see what's going to be the boomerang effect of it, I think really fascinates you.
Yeah, I think that's pretty fair. I like that. It's an interesting interpretation.
You're welcome. If you fast forwarded to when you were 12, what was your favorite song?
My favorite song around then was, I think, probably any of the songs from Taylor Swift's album at that stage. I think it was her first album. And I think I used to say that my favorite song was David Bowie's Starman. And I did love that song. But I think if we just go by pure seeking it out and listening to it frequently, it was probably one of the Taylor Swift songs, because I think I'm not really a fan anymore. And I think it's more just we went different paths, if you will. But I think at that point, she had this uncanny ability to talk about being a teenage girl and totally lost in your feelings and quite confused about the world around you and everything that was going on. And that wasn't usually a thing that people sang about. If you were aiming your music at teen girls, it was either boys or boy bands. And if you were a girl yourself, then you sang about cute things. So I think writing about that particular brand of it, like intense misery about inconsequential things, I think was a pretty rare thing around that time, and she did it really well. So some tension between David Bowie's Starman, which I felt like I loved the song, and I felt like should have been the favorite song of a worldly intellectual like myself, which I was definitely a thing I was preoccupied with at that stage. So tension between that song and maybe, let's say, like Love Story or something, or I think it's called Love Story, Taylor Swift, her first album.
All right, my friend. Well, we've arrived at our destination. But before we get off of this time machine, there's a small declaration form. So it's yes or no. We're going to move pretty quickly here. Are you ready?
Yes.
Daisy, have you chosen someone to pass on your skills to?
No, I don't think I have. But I think I try to with everyone a little bit. But I don't think I've picked a person to mentor. And maybe I should. I've never thought of that.
Are you married?
I am not.
Do you
I'm
have
in a
children?
long-term relationship.
Okay.
No children yet.
All right. Do you believe in God?
I no longer believe in a Christian God, but I do believe in a deity. I'm unclear as to how it, necessarily relates to my life. So I don't make any presumptions. I think there's probably something out there, but I don't know what it is, and I don't have time to figure it out.
Do you watch? Sorry. Do you watch TV for more than 3 hours a day?
On average, yes.
All right. What about?
I'll binge a bunch at some point, and then I won't watch for a while, and then I'll binge a bunch again. So probably it spreads out at about 3 hours a day if you work it out.
What about screen time, the phone and the computer? Is it more than 8 or less than 8 hours a day?
Oh, definitely more than 8.
All right. If you had to share with us, Daisy, your own unique, real statement, a statement that represents who you are. Daisy, I'm not going to slaughter your name. I'll just say Daisy.
I think that I don't know how to boil everything I think down into a statement. But okay, so maybe this one, because everyone disagrees with me. I think that any two people can build love together and have a long-lasting, meaningful relationship. I don't think it's destiny or soulmates or magic. I think it's just intentionally being kind on a daily basis. And I think any two people from anywhere and any corner of the planet could theoretically do that, which means then any people could theoretically do that. And it's a choice whether or not we want to and whether or not we follow through.
Daisy, this has been a great pleasure, my friend. Before you leave, is there anything else you'd like to share with our amazing audience?
No, that's great. It's been nice to indulge in a little self-discovery. So no, I've had fun. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Daisy, now you say your last name so we can hear the correct version, please.
Onubogu.
There we go, Daisy Onubogu. Thank you for being on What Is Inspired by 12-Minute Convos with Angel Jones.
This segment has been brought to you by Amazon Enterprise.